Yo, what up? This is John Cola with GrowingYourGreens.com. I have another exciting episode for you today. What we're going to do today is talk about mint. We're going to talk about transplanting mint and also making some cuttings of mint to propagate mint. The first thing before planting, you always want to water your plants before planting, so you want to get them nice and wet. So we're going to wet this guy down nice and good. We're going to let that guy soak a little bit. Now, mint is what I call an invasive plant. Now, what that means is that you could plant it somewhere and it's going to take over. So this can be a good thing if you have an area of space you want to dedicate to only growing mint, because it may choke out other things that are trying to grow there. So for this reason, I highly encourage you to plant mint in a pot in many cases. You know, you want to get the largest size pot you can. This happens to be a fairly large one. If you can't afford or buy pots, you could also get a free 5-gallon bucket at outside like a deli or something that they normally ship olives or paint or whatever. Make sure you clean it out really good if you're reusing a bucket that had paints or other things in there. And you're going to pop some holes in the bottom and fill it up with a nice mixture of compost and some soil. Also, I'd encourage you to add some vermiculite or cocoa peat or peat moss to hold the moisture. Mint doesn't like it too wet, but they don't like it too dry. They probably don't like being too dry, and they could probably handle some level of wetness. Besides growing in a container, if you don't want to grow in a container, because there are pros and cons to containers, especially in a hot summer, the containers, because they are exposed to more airflow and more warmth, they tend to dry out quicker. So unless you're constantly going around and watering, your mint plants may dry out, in which case you will lose them. So the alternative that I'm going to show you guys today is planting mint in a raised bed. Now, I never encourage you to plant mint alone in a raised bed without using this technique because once again, it's going to spread and take over the whole bed. You can see here what we've already done is I've already planted 3 mint plants. We have a chocolate mint, and man, there are so many varieties of mint. This mint, it literally smells like chocolate. It's absolutely amazing. I don't have a smell-o-vision through the YouTube yet, but you got to take my word for it. It's an amazing. It's probably one of my favorite mints. Over here we had cordifolia mint, and over here we have mint the best. So these are more some standard common varieties, but there's even varieties like cotton candy mint, and I've never had that one yet, but supposedly smells like cotton candy. There's so many different mints available in the world, and I'd encourage you to grow as a wide variety as you can. Each mint has different uses. Of course, all these mints can easily be made into a tea. You could add them to flavor desserts, flavor smoothies, and even flavor juices, or put a few in your soups, or if you're making wraps, chop up a few in your wraps. Once again, a little bit of mint goes a long way when using it culinarily. Is that a word? So anyway, let's get on to transplanting. As you can see, I'm going to plant these in the raised bed, and we're planting these in pots. So if you are going to use this technique, I always encourage you to use a real world material, not man-made material, pots in your raised bed. So in this case, we have some ceramic pots, which is a natural material. The thing I like about ceramic is that it will wick and hold moisture and let it go. So you can kind of see in here, part of this pot here is nice and dark. That's because it's holding moisture, and part of this pot is a little bit lighter because it doesn't have any moisture in there. Likewise, the moisture will transfer from the soil through the pot and into the plant, and also through the hole in the bottom. It'll actually wick up moisture if the plant needs it. So that's also going to be a nice feature. So your plants or your mint is not going to dry out as much if you put it in a pot in your raised bed versus having it alone. Now we're doing this because mint likes to root out in multiple ways. So it likes to spread out underneath the ground. The roots like to spread and then pop up new plants or new shoots. And also what will happen even in this case is that, here's a good example maybe on this chocolate mint, it'll grow over the edge, and what will happen is on these little nodes here, you can kind of see some, it starts to send out roots. So even though we're planted this in here, it won't spread by the roots, but this will drag over, hit the ground. If the ground's wet, then it'll root out some more. So there's no way to prevent mint from doing this except not grow it in your raised bed if you don't want it to spread. Now, if it does spread, if you catch it early enough, you could actually clip them out and replant them and put them in a new pot. Another really neat thing you could do with any mint is you could literally just take a scissors and snip it off, and then you're going to put this in like a glass of water for a few days, and you're going to see roots develop at the cut point. Once the root develops in the cut point, Then you're going to transplant that into a little pot with some soil, keep it watered, and guess what? You got a new mint plant. I've even gone so far as to get some exotic varieties of mints at gardens. I'll actually go and dig up, not just a cutting, but a little bit of roots, because all it takes is a little bit. You could pot it up, and it's going to grow into a whole new plant. In any case, let's go ahead now and plant this mint in this pot in the raised bed. I've basically dug a little hole here so that the pot will fit in nicely, and I raised it a little bit above ground level. Now you could put this at ground level and even cover it over a little bit so you don't actually see the pot under the ground, and if you do that, there's more of a chance mint of running on you or getting away and getting out of your pot. So I guess the next thing we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and fill this pot up with a little bit of my compost mix here. So I'll have compost, some peat moss or coconut coir, and some vermiculite mixed in there. So we're going to line the bottom with that. We're then going to take our scissors and cut this label off. And we're going to take a look at the roots here. And the roots have been growing pretty good in here. And we're going to take this whole peat pot off. Now, I had another episode on peat pots, and you always want to remove your peat pots before planting. If you don't remove the peat pots actually restrict the growth of the roots. Once you have all the peat pot off, then you're going to basically tease the roots out. I like to just take it and just pull them out a little bit, break them up from the circle orientation that they may have been growing in, because they're going to continue to grow in circles if you don't do this. The next step is I like to use some mycorrhiza. I'm using the Great White Premium Mycorrhiza, and this has many different varieties of mycorrhiza, but also the beneficial bacteria. And you just need a little bit on the roots. And so that should do it. We're then going to go ahead and place this in the pot. And always when potting things up, I like to, pot it up at about the level of the pot. So in this situation, I don't have enough compost in the bottom. We're going to fill it up a little bit more. And that's about a good level for me. And then we're just going to go ahead and carefully dump in the rest of the compost. So that's pretty much it. Once you're in and you got all the soil in, you're not yet done, because the last thing you want to do always when transplanting is give it a nice water. Give it some water to help reduce the transplant shock. Hopefully you guys enjoyed learning about the mint today, how to propagate it, how to plant it in a raised bed. And I would encourage everybody to grow mint, especially if you're not yet growing any food. Grow mint. It's one of the easiest things to keep alive, and it tastes so good too. Once again, my name is John Kohler with growingyourgreens.com. We'll see you next time, and keep on growing.